Hey, what is up, YouTube? I'm back with another good boxing update video for you guys today. I have some breaking news. Shout out to Blue Blood Sports TV. Devin the Dream Haney has now come to very close term agreement deals in which George Kambosos could possibly fight Devin Haney. As you can see from this tweet right here, he said right here, I just want a real war for our great fans. My energy never changes. You know that. Let's just hope you and your team doesn't either. Happy New Year, Dev. The Emperor is patiently waiting, but don't make me wait too long. And the three other names are knocking on the door too. So basically, from what I am hearing, and obviously I haven't watched this video yet from Blue Blood. He'll probably bring more information to the table. But if you guys want to take a look at that, be sure to click the link as I post this in the video description. But this is some good news. I think this is a step in the right direction. Devin Haney versus George Kambosos is an amazing fucking fight. For undisputed, that's obviously what we want. And I guess as far as this fight goes, this is going to be the biggest fight, or one of the biggest fights in boxing come 2022. So I wanted to give my initial thoughts on this, of how I see, this fight playing out if everything can go well in contractual negotiations. My thoughts on it is that Devin Haney will definitely dominate George Kambosos. Devin Haney, he's a very good fighter. For those of you that don't even know, and for anybody that's new to the channel, going into boxing or learning about boxing, Devin Haney is a WBC lightweight champion, and George Kambosos Jr. is the unified lightweight WBO, WBA, and IBF world champion title holder. Both of these guys are at the point of their careers where, one man wants to know who is the best in the world. And George Kambosos had recently defeated former lightweight world champion Teofimo Lopez Jr., that had lost his belts to George Kambosos Jr. in a split decision, majority decision victory at Madison Square Garden in New York City, in Teofimo Lopez's backyard. It was a very good fight. George Kambosos dominated Teofimo Lopez. He got dropped in the 10th round. Teo got dropped in the first or second round. But that fight was a very deadly, brutal fight. And Teofimo Lopez, he definitely overlooked George. And George came out blazing hot, and he did what he had to do to win. But as far as this fight being made with Devin Haney, George Kambosos had been showing some weird energy back and forth, trying to say that Devin Haney, he's the email champion, and I don't need to fight him. He's not credible, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's all BS, and it makes no sense for anybody to even want to listen to that. But just to keep it long story short, Devin Haney wants undisputed at 135. Devin Haney has been at 135 for quite some time, and he cannot make the weight as easier as he did when he was younger, coming into the weight class, or growing into it. And George Kambosos Jr. has been a lightweight throughout most of his career. Devin Haney, he is 23 years old, and George Kambosos is 28 years old. This fight is definitely a very, big fight in the lightweight division. Devin Haney has been a champion for quite some time. I believe he's been champion for at least 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. And George Kambosos, he had recently won his titles back in November. And as far as this fight going down, I think this fight will be, one of the biggest fights out of the entire year for 2022. Devin Haney, he's a very slick, orthodox style fighter, has a very, very good jab, very, very great ring IQ, great defensive mechanisms, knows how to move around in the ring when he gets you to a very, disoriented position. And George Kambosos, he's a decent semi-pure boxer. He's been in the ring with some good names, but he has trained with guys by the likes of Manny Pacquiao. He sparred like 200 plus rounds with him. But as far as Devin Haney goes, he's been in there with Floyd Mayweather, and his skill set and his ring IQ is levels above what anybody could think of, that would probably think that Devin Haney would lose to. Devin Haney, a very highly skilled, talented fighter. People want to say he's too green, he's a prospect, blah blah blah. No, I don't believe in all that bullshit. Devin Haney is a monster. He is a beast. He has everything in the toolbox, to win, and he does not give up. He even says it, himself. I'm willing to give up my record to fight the best, to be the best. And Devin Haney, he doesn't care what anybody has to say as far as what he tries to do to urge himself to be number one. If he's gonna do it, he says he's gonna do it. So George Kambosos and Devin Haney is a huge fight. And for this video that Blue Blood put out, if everything goes out well in contractual negotiations for Undisputed, that should be the biggest payday that Devin Haney could give to George Kambosos, by way of Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. And George Kambosos cannot make any excuses to say Devin Haney is being a diva, blah blah blah. He's not giving him enough money. No, Devin Haney is a very rich person. He has everything built from the ground up, and he's doing everything correctly. And good enough, he's trying to fight all the big names to bring onto DAZN and Matchroom. And Kambosos, he didn't really do anything to get up to the top other than beat Teofimo Lopez. And some would say he's very comparable to Jeff Horn 2.0, just simply because, Australian fighters, to which that's where George Kambosos is from, they don't really have too much of a shine on the big stage when it comes to all the biggest, elite core fighters in boxing. Other than that, like him and Tim Tszyu are pretty much like the only names that anybody could think of. But other than that, like George Kambosos isn't really known. He's not really doing anything spectacular, for the world, other than just getting his win over Teo, and now he has to prove himself at a much bigger stage, which Devin Haney is, the bigger prize. But as far as everything else goes, I think how this fight would play out is that Devin Haney, he will embarrass George Kambosos. Definitely by outpointing him and out jabbing him and just, out styling him on all cylinders. And I think George Kambosos knows that. And I think like George Kambosos has been switching up his energy very, very high leading up to trying to make this fight happen, just simply because, he said he wanted to fight Devin Haney, and he knew that he wasn't the undisputed world champion, and Devin Haney has been mistreated horribly by the WBC, where they tried to basically steal his belt away by trying to say that Devin Haney is no longer the WBC champion, and he's the WBC Pride champion, whatever type of BS that's ever to be. But then they backtrack that and say, oh, well, he's now our champion, in which obviously we already know that the WBC franchise belt is not a real belt. There's no mandatories, there's no actual sanctioning fees that you really put into it. Well, actually, no, you do put sanction fees into it to have witness protection built against other fighters, so that way you don't have to fight tougher opponents. But it doesn't make any fucking sense, because you're basically using it as a status to say that I don't need to fight you unless you got a belt, and that really doesn't make any sense, because it's basically saying that you're gonna bitch around, and by time when it's ready for you to fight somebody that wants to force a mandatory to you, then you can't basically you can't fuck around and say, oh, well, I don't want to fight him or fight her, even though that they could try to force a mandate to fight against you. And if that sanctioned body, like the WBC, wants to allow it, and there's big money in it, then of course, they're going to do it. But, I don't know, man. Honestly, this is why ducking needs to go away in boxing, because people are too afraid to get to get their ass whooped, and I think Kambosos knows that, and I think he understands like what his message is coming into the sport. I'm only here for just one big payday, and then I'm out. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think when Kambosos, when he loses to somebody that we don't know or somebody that is known in boxing, whether it's going to be Gervonta or Devin Haney or anybody out there that has a very dangerous, fighting style, I think Kambosos is going to get murdered, like Jeff Horn. I think that's what's going to happen. Jeff Horn, he was basically a lamb target for Terrence Crawford, and look at what Terrence Crawford did to him. He eviscerated Jeff Horn, and I think that's what's going to happen to George Kambosos. And I think that's why we've been seeing a lot of weird energy from George Kambosos trying to act like he wants to fight Devin Haney, but in all reality, we all know that Devin Haney, he's not ducking and dodging nobody, but George Kambosos is the one pretending as if he wants to fight, but then at the end of the day, when it comes to actually fighting, he's bitching out like a pussy. So I think Kambosos is ducking Haney, but if everything can go well with contractual negotiations and Devin can put up huge money for this fight, in which I think Eddie Hearn, he's gonna have to definitely give Kambosos up to at least $7 to $8 million, if not more, then by all means go for it, because it's not like Kambosos is the A side. It's obviously Devin Haney, but if you have to make this fight happen where it has to be like a 60-40 or 65-35 split, by all means go for it. I don't care how it happens. It's just that Devin Haney needs to get undisputed before he moves up to 140, because if he moves up to 140 and he doesn't have any political backing to say that he won undisputed, or he's going to move up from the WBC belt to the 140-pound vacancy slot for the WBC when Josh Taylor vacates, then it's going to be a really tough outing for Devin Haney. So I think Devin Haney is trying to stay at 135 simply just to get undisputed, and then he can just move away and definitely move up to 140 and do what the fuck he has to do. But either way, I don't want to see Devin Haney at 135 that much longer. I think it's just basically get this fight in with George Kambosos and then get up out of there. That's pretty much it. If Devin Haney cannot get the fight with George Kambosos, I would strongly recommend that Devin Haney moves up, because I care about Devin Haney. I like watching him fight. He is a true warrior to his name, and he's a very intelligent person. I think Devin Haney knows what we're saying about him isn't just hate or bad criticism. It's out of tough love, and I think Devin Haney knows what he's up against. The boxing establishment doesn't want to see him up there, and they don't want to see another Floyd Mayweather in the Rising. So I'm gonna definitely be promoting the living crap out of this fight to be made, and I'm gonna keep you guys updated with more boxing news content. So be sure to hit that like button, do what you guys got to do, and I'm out of here with more content coming up soon for the channel. All right, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys later. Thank you. Bye.